Hello and welcome to that Deacon on YouTube. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the introductions. I'm going to get right into it because this month I hope to show you how varied the life of a deacon is. And I've had a very diverse month since I've spoken to you last, so I thought I'd share it with you. It's so varied, I wanted to make sure I got everything, so I typed out a list here. All right, the first thing is, as I have mentioned before, there have been a group that formed together in La Cañada, where I serve, of all the clergy, and I think I've mentioned that before. We get together, as a private group of just pastors and spiritual leaders, maybe twice a year, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But that is a planning session, so we can do other things within the community. So this October, we met at a wonderful restaurant in Pasadena named Celestino's. It's the favorite of the Monsignor over at the Roman Catholic Church, and we all got together for our lunch. Most of it is fellowship, and then the last half of the meeting, we decide what we're going to do throughout the year. This month, we seriously talked about the idea of Sabbath. And if you remember, one of my videos I talked about right when I came back from vacation is Sabbath. Well, what we're planning on doing is taking out a full-page ad in our local La Cañada newspaper to urge people to take one day a week to rest, to not work, to not do so many chores around the house. Pick something that you like to do that fulfills you and makes you a more relaxed, a more caring, a more fulfilled individual, and do that once a week. And all of us are going to sign our names, so I'm very happy about that. It was an idea that our rector came up with, but she can't always go to the meetings, so I've been at every one, so I really have been pushing for that. The Monsignor over at the Roman Catholic Church said to me after lunch, "Thank you for your tenacity." So we'll be doing that in January. The other thing we planned was to get together private schools and other schools in the area so that they could hear about the city's new plan for emergencies, which could mean natural disasters or, in the time in which we live, disasters brought about by human beings and gun violence. So we had a representative of the Red Cross there. We had security people from private schools, and they heard what the city has prepared. The interesting thing is that the people that went had never spoken before. They had never met one another, which surprised us. So the one thing the clergy group in La Cañada is able to do is to connect people. We weren't sure what was going to come out of our meetings together. But what it turned out we are able to do, because of our position, is to gather people. So we had a big luncheon. And as you can see in the picture here, there's a lot of people. I'm not in this month's picture. I had to leave because of something I had to take care of at the office. Remember, I'm parish administrator. So I had something else going on. But I was there for about 90% of the meeting, just not the picture afterwards. But you can see how many people have gotten together, and these are educators from all the schools in the area, because we have private school and a public high school, and we got them together to share and to discuss things that they are concerned about. And everyone shared, everyone made connections. We also have an email list of all the educators, so they can all get together and communicate with one another. And we are extremely pleased with the turnout. and the enthusiasm we got from all of those wonderful people. So that was our clergy group. Then in October, all of the deacons of the diocese get together once a year with our bishop. This year was a smaller group, mainly because there was a funeral that day of a very important lay leader in the Diocese of Los Angeles. And many deacons had had dealings with this person. So they went to that funeral, which was about the same time. And if you know anything about Los Angeles, it is absolutely immense. So getting there to the funeral and also attending this Deacon's Day with the bishop was almost impossible. But there are two things that I'd like to share about that gathering. Number one was the bishop asked us if we would be willing every now and then in rotation to accompany him to churches when he does visitations, to not only see what a deacon is, but how possibly a deacon is used in liturgy. We will not take away from anything that is normally done in a parish, but we were also asked if a deacon does accompany our bishop, if we would be willing to do a Q&A after the service and give a brief history about the diaconate so that we could promote it and let people know. So, of course, we all said yes to this. And then the second thing that happened at that meeting was a talk by Andrea James. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she is the founder of Families for Justice and Healing, an author of Upper Bunkies Unite and Other Thoughts on the Politics of Mass Incarceration. The interesting thing about this person is that she is a highly trained lawyer who got mixed up in the entire real estate bubble with the banks in 2008 when all of these shenanigans were going on. So she was sentenced to prison. It's a unique point of view to have a lawyer in incarceration, in prison. And so she has formed a number of thoughts and worked with inmates to stem the tide of mass incarceration for things that are so trivial, it is almost ridiculous. So I will leave a link to her in the bottom. So if you're interested, you could read more about it. Andrea and her daughter were with us to speak and also to share lunch. And the one thing I said to her during our lunch break was that, you know, the work that you are doing is exactly the work that Jesus was doing. And much of his ministry, he was not necessarily concerned with individual people, but he was going after a system that had failed. And that is exactly the thing that she is doing with her advocacy for a prison emancipation, showing that there is a justice system that has totally failed to do what it's supposed to do and to really serve the people. The next thing on my list this month, or in the past month, was we hosted a concert over at our church for a local high school, Crescenta Valley High School. They have a big instrumental music program. And they put on this ensemble concert every year. This is the second year we've done it. And so they have an orchestra, and then they have an assignment to break into small groups to form little ensembles. And they must pick the music, rehearse it themselves, and perform it. And we have at least, I think there had to have been at least 55, 60 high school kids there playing instruments in small groups. I took a short video the room is somewhat busy with the parents coming and going as their child performs, and then we fed all of the kids. So we had this beautiful spread outside, and after they performed, they ate. And so we had a constant round of hungry high school mouths to feed. And I had a lovely time at that concert, speaking with the students, especially with my background in music. I've worked over the years with some pretty well-known people in the classical field and had met a few. And so it was fun sharing those stories with them and to encourage them to keep up their practice of music. Even though they may not want to do this as a career, music fulfills your life in so many different ways and helps you academically in countless ways. So I hope they keep up their love of music and their performing of it. Working in an ensemble teaches you a lot of things. And though you might say the same thing happens in sports, I'm sure it's very similar. Music tends to do something a little bit deeper when you are working with a group of people. The next thing that came up, and this is strange how ministry works. I think a couple years back, someone in my church who had worked in the entertainment industry a gazillion years ago, even longer before I got involved, we used to share stories about our backgrounds. And so I was invited to speak at a local Kiwanis club about my showbiz stories. And then one thing I was able to do was to tie some of my relationships I had with people in the industry and realize later that I was doing pastoral care without even knowing it. So I would give this talk dressed in clericals to show, A, that ministry happens in all types of situations, even behind the camera on a studio shoot, or two, that people in the clerical business, people that are ordained, come from many walks of life and are called in many different backgrounds. So I did it once, and then I got invited to give this talk again. Then I gave it a third time for another group at another church because someone was at the Kiwanis Club and heard me and said, oh, we want him, so I've done it. I gave it like 3 times, and I figured that was it. So I deleted everything, the PowerPoint with all the videos and the slides, and then I got a call again to give it, so I had to put it all back together. And I gave a talk at the Sunland Tahunga Women's Club. And so it was a very nice day, and I gave my spiel. But after it was over, there was a pastor of a church there in Sunland, and she said that she is involved with a local newspaper that has a segment entitled Spiritually Speaking. And it's almost like Dear Abby, but people bring in spiritual problems. Or problems that they would like to hear back from a cleric. They asked me if I'd be willing to write for that. So I said, of course, just send me the question and I'll do it. And I had my first one sent to me, and it was published, and I'm very happy to be a part of that. So that came out of me talking about old show business stories. So you never know what's going to happen when the Holy Spirit is buzzing around. And last but not least, we had our annual diocesan convention. Normally it takes place in December, but this year they decided to do it in mid-late November. And it was lovely, as it always is. It's fun to see colleagues and friends. There are people from my sponsoring parish who are quite active with it. And it's good to see them because I don't get down to Huntington Beach very often anymore. But I wanted to talk about 2 things. One was our keynote address. And again, I'm going to leave a link below to a video link to her keynote address. It was from Dolores Huerta, who is one of the co-founders of the United Farm Workers. She worked with Cesar Chavez, and she is a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, a laureate with that. So we were completely honored to hear her talk about the work that she did, mostly in community organizing. It was homespun, it was down to earth. I'm sure it's a talk that she has given countless times over her many years of activism. But it was not a stodgy address like some we have had in the past. It was a person that spoke from the heart, spoke of realities, spoke of her work in the world. Obviously, she was preaching to the choir, but she has given me some ideas of things to do. For example, when I'm talking with many of the people I serve at Laundry Love once a month. So I will try to impart some of her information to help people. The other thing that I loved at our convention, and I don't want to get their names wrong, so I'm not going to say them, but I met a lovely woman and a very nice man who came up to me and who said that they really enjoy watching that Deacon on YouTube. They are two people that are in the Diaconal formation process. So it's very nice to hear that what I do on YouTube is helping them in their formation. In the time I talked to you last time, a deacon's life is filled with a variance of things depending upon what comes up. Besides being the parish administrator and meeting my thoughtful walking group and doing Laundry Love and preaching a couple times and doing pastoral visits, outside things happen that are really wonderful and are totally in tune with what a deacon does out in the world. Please don't forget to subscribe and like. Do a thumbs up every now and then. I get a few of those, but it really helps the channel because it pushes it up in its ranking. So thank you very much for watching this month. I'll see you next time. God bless. Be well and make a difference in the lives of those you touch. Bye-bye.